Alrighty, hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again for having me out, John. So, the first topic we'll be discussing here is a very common topic found in not only music theory, it's one of the basic things that they start in music theory, but something that almost anyone who's taken any music course, whether it be chorus, band, whatever, what have you, you've probably at least encountered it or heard some mention of it once or twice before, and maybe even used it once or twice before for some fun stuff. So, what the circle of fifths is it's kind of this concept, and it's also, as you can see with the diagram that Jono has up right now, the just uh, the it's just exactly what it sounds like, a circle. And what happens is the notes that you're seeing, the F, C, G, and all those notes, depending on whichever way around the circle you're going, you're moving in what's called an interval known as a fifth, which is five whole steps, or more simplistically, seven what are called semitones or half steps. So a half step would be moving up chromatically. So if you go from F to F sharp to G, so on and so forth. Seven of those you'll go from F to, I believe the next one's C. Yeah,
Yes.
F to C to G, so on and so forth. And then what the circle of fifths represents, it represents three different things. The most simplistic of which, and most anyone can figure out, is notes. The next one you would most likely figure out is it represents chords. You can use it for chord structure and building chords. And the third, and one that most people normally encounter, and the one that I'll spend a little bit more time discussing, was key signatures. So as you can see on the diagram, there's actually key signatures as you move around this circle, and as you're moving around, depending on which direction you're going, there's actually a pattern happening with the key signature. So, for example, if you start in the middle here with C, the C major, as you move around it clockwise, you're adding a sharp until we get all the
Oh,
way
oh,
down.
I went back. There we go.
Uh
Sorry.
oh, difficulties. Uh, as we get all the way down to F sharp, also known as G flat, and that's why you see both because they are the same note. We have hit what is called, the last amount. We can only add seven sharps. After that, technically, there are no such thing as more, but also seven sharps is also represented as six flats. And you normally will see actually that key as G flat instead of F sharp major because flats are easier to read in music. It's just simpler that way, and it's easier to write that way. And then as we continue to move up now from G flat all the way up to F and then back to C, we are still technically adding a sharp, but since we have flats now, we're just taking away a flat, which is the same thing as adding a sharp. It just doesn't look exactly like that. And if you were to go counterclockwise around the circle, you are technically adding a flat until you can't add anymore, and then you're still adding a flat or taking away a sharp. But um, moving on from just kind of like that, in general speaking, and in application sense, a lot of the time, what back now in the Baroque period, so now we're back way, 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 couple, 100 years ago now, uh, in the Baroque period, and even in the height of the classical music composition era, the circle of fifths was actually used for composition. It was used to kind of get an idea of chord modulations because a lot of the time it was moving from one major chord to the next, and it was just a good way to represent or understand the intervals. But also, actually, in more modern times, in jazz music, it's used for a better understanding and a better kind of basis of basic improv for jazz improv, and then it's also used in more modern music as well for determining modulations and for some very very basic like background music for chord work. But that's really just a general overview. That was kind of a very quick word vomit there of it. That's really only one specific aspect of it, but um, I'm gonna kind of leave it there for John to maybe have some questions, or if we have some comments or anything.
Well, one thing that I do really like about the Circle of Fifths is the kind of natural sound it has when you are following it in a certain direction.
Right.
And sometimes with I know this is probably getting a little bit more complex, but with like seven chords, when you play a seven chord, there's kind of this eerie like gravity towards the next note in a or
Yes.
sorry, it goes counterclockwise when you play seven, correct? If you play G7, you want to go to C.
Yes.
I can demonstrate.
Let's get some music going here now.
Yeah. So
Music too.
if you play a G chord and then a C chord, if you instead play a G7, it kind of gives that slight gravity, and the reason that it actually happens is because this note in the G7, the seventh note, is only one away from the note that's in the C chord, so you're closer to it, and so that's why it kind of gives that feeling that it's kind of pulling it that way. But I find it interesting that something as simple as this and somewhat mathematical can can shed light on those sort of abstract sounds in music.
Yeah, and it's kind of really cool because like what you were saying with the it kind of you feel this pull with the seventh chords to the next major chord. It's that's part of music, and that the circle of fifths is almost representing that. And the concept of wow, we're going this direction, and that you can do a lot more with it, as you can see even in the circle of fifths. The diagram I provided also has the minors provided underneath all the major stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it even gets more convoluted. Um, but the minor chords really, same thing as with the seventh chords, really just want to pull you to the next part of the
Oh,
circle.
definitely.
So, and that most everybody has heard some part of that when you listen to like even a classical like a fugue. The whole time you're in minor, there's this suspense, and then you hit the major chord, and you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely something that I have only scratched the surface
So,
on, and I know that with your schooling and general passion for music, you have gained a little bit more experience on that. So I'm glad you could come on and talk about this topic, and hopefully, if people are interested in the chat or interested in just watching in general, we can have you on for some more complex talks in the future.
yeah,
But I guess now we'll transition over to your second topic, if that's fine.